Okay, so when bombs start falling, you're probably not thinking about your bank account, right? But what happens when an entire country's financial system is supposed to just vaporize overnight? Well, in Ukraine, the story that unfolded was something nobody saw coming.
Experts all over the world were basically just waiting for the whole thing to implode. The playbook for a crisis like this is pretty straightforward. You expect a massive run on the banks, ATMs to run dry, digital payments to just stop working, and the currency to go into a nosedive. A total financial meltdown wasn't a question of if, but when.
But here's the thing. That's not what happened. Not even remotely. I mean, for over 2 years now, through a full-scale war, Ukraine's banking system hasn't failed for a single day.
So this is really the story of a financial miracle. It's an incredible case study in resilience, and honestly, it has lessons for all of us. The big question is, how on earth did they pull it off?
Okay, get this. In those first few absolutely chaotic days of the invasion, a staggering 70% of all bank branches in the entire country stayed open. They just kept working. This wasn't a system about to collapse. This was a system that was holding the line.
And at its core, the system was just incredibly strong. I mean, out of 69 banks that were up and running, only a tiny handful, we're talking just 4, were in any real danger of, running out of cash to give people. And let me tell you, this wasn't just luck. This was all by design.
Right, so this kind of resilience, it doesn't just happen by magic. The groundwork for this was actually laid years before the invasion even started. It was this combination of really tough, long-term reforms and some incredibly fast, decisive actions when it mattered most.
So the strategy really came in 2 parts. First, there was this painful but absolutely necessary cleanup after 2014. They got rid of almost 100 weak or, frankly, corrupt banks. Then, on the very day of the invasion, the central bank made a huge call. They froze the exchange rate. This was crucial to stop a full-blown panic and keep money from just pouring out of the country.
Okay, so that brings us to the second pillar, the digital fortress. This is where technology really became the ultimate shield. Because, in modern warfare, the fight isn't just on the ground, it's in cyberspace, too.
So with buildings and infrastructure being physically destroyed, the banks had this emergency plan. Just get the data out. They moved all their critical information, all their servers, to super secure cloud services safely outside of Ukraine. Think about that. It meant that even if a physical bank building was completely leveled, the bank itself, its data, its operations, it was still alive.
But here's the problem, right? A digital fortress is pretty useless if you don't have power. So when Russia started systematically hitting the energy grid, the central bank rolled out this brilliant idea called power banking. The whole point was to make sure a core network of banks could keep running even if the country went completely dark.
And these special branches, they became so much more than just banks. People started calling them points of invincibility. These were hubs with their own generators, their own satellite links. They weren't just giving out cash. They offered internet, a warm place to be, and a spot to charge your phone when literally everything else was out.
Okay, so the banks survived the physical attacks. They survived the digital attacks. That right there is incredible. But what happened next, this is where the story gets really wild. You'd think the banks in a war zone would be bleeding money, right? Posting huge losses. Instead, in 2023, Ukraine's banking sector had its most profitable year ever. I mean, how is that even possible?
The numbers are just staggering. In 2023, the total profits hit almost $4 billion. Let that sink in. That's nearly double the profits they made in the year before the full-scale invasion.
So how did this happen? Well, the first big reason was a massive flood of cash from international aid. We're talking about an expected $37 billion in 2024 alone. All that money has to go somewhere, right? It flows through the banking system, which gives the banks tons of capital to work with and makes them incredibly stable.
Okay, so reason number 2, the banks had a super safe and really profitable place to put all that extra cash. They plowed it into high-interest government war bonds, holding over $1.4 trillion in the local currency. So this was a win-win. The government got the funding it desperately needed for the war effort, and the banks got a stable, guaranteed profit.
So you end up with this kind of perfect storm for profitability. You've got foreign aid flooding the system with cash, you've got the government offering these safe, high-return bonds for the banks to buy, and on top of that, you have millions of military salaries being paid through these banks, plus transaction fees from millions of Ukrainians living abroad and sending money home. It's this really unique mix that created this totally unexpected financial boom right in the middle of a war. So what's the takeaway from all of this? What can we learn from this incredible story? Well, the lessons here really go way beyond Ukraine. It's basically a powerful new playbook for how to be financially prepared in what's becoming a more and more unstable world.
You can actually take this huge national strategy and scale it right down to a personal level for your own household, no matter where you live. Let's call it financial civil defense. It's basically a set of rules to protect your own finances if a crisis hits.
It's a simple 5-step plan, really, for building your own little financial fortress. Step 1, the basics. Have physical cash on hand, enough for emergencies. Step 2, diversify. Don't keep all your eggs in one basket or all your money in one bank. 3, get comfortable with tech. Have a few different digital payment options set up and ready to go. 4, stay calm and informed. Know how to spot fake news and stick to reliable sources so you don't panic. And finally, number 5, prioritize your local currency. Because in a real emergency, that's what you'll actually be able to spend.
And this really brings us back to the most important point of all. As the experts on the ground will tell you, none of it would have been possible if it weren't for those tough reforms made years ago. It just goes to show, preparation isn't some optional extra. It is the absolute foundation of survival.
So in the end, Ukraine's story really forces us to think differently about what security even means. It's not just about tanks and troops anymore. It turns out that a resilient, adaptable financial system can be one of the most powerful defenses a nation has. And that leaves us with a pretty critical question for our own future. Are we prepared?